Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Security Repo Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dwayne, and we're here to bring you the latest in security research and the latest in security news, as well as best practices from across the wider world of security. Please like, subscribe, share this with your friends, and let's raise awareness for everybody. This week, we have a really awesome guest. Yash Shahani is a security researcher and AppSec engineer with a background in building and breaking applications. He holds a master's in information security from Carnegie Mellon and focuses on finding vulnerabilities that tools miss. He's an active member of the security community and an organizer for BSides San Francisco. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Dwayne.
Well,
It's my first podcast appearance, so thanks for inviting me over.
we're great to have you here, and hopefully you'll be doing a lot more of them because you're talking about some really interesting stuff. I met you back at BSides San Diego, and you were giving a talk all around vulnerability hunting. So let's just start there. What is vulnerability hunting?
So basically, vulnerability hunting is going through code with tools or manually to try to find vulnerabilities that might occur in code. It can be something simple that a tool might find, like an authentication logic, or it might be a more complex logical flow that sometimes tools miss, but humans can spot.
What kind of vulnerability are we talking about here?
Okay, so one example of a simple vulnerability that you can find with tools is a SQL injection. For example, you're taking user input from somewhere and it's going directly in a SQL query that interacts with your database. That is a big no-no and might expose all of your data to an attacker. This is something that's usually pretty straightforward to find using a tool, and a lot of static analysis tools should be able to find these. And there are some others that tools might miss, like some authentication flows that are across multiple files or something that you might need to hunt for manually.
So that goes to the heart of the talk you gave in San Diego, and he said something really interesting there that tools can only scan for what they're designed to look for.
Tools can, yeah, as I said, tools right now, tools can scan what they're designed to look for. Humans still play a huge part in the vulnerability hunting process. So the traditional AppSec approach is that staff scanners are rule-based. They catch things that match the rules that you have programmed into them. So they're very good for known patterns, but blind to unknowns or context-based logic flows. So AI right now tries to go beyond this, and we can talk a little bit about that if you want, and how the AI is changing the game and how humans will still be involved in the future.
Before we talk about AI, because it's 2025, everybody's throwing
Yeah,
AI at everything. Let's talk
yeah.
about the human element here. So you said something interesting in there, contextual awareness. Uh, what? Why are humans just naturally better at looking for some of this stuff than some of the tools?
So tools right now are rule based, as I mentioned. So there is somebody at the security company who's written a rule and thought of as many cases as he could have thought of at the time to detect a certain pattern. But things are evolving all the time. And rules do not evolve as fast as programming languages because there are less people working on it across different companies. So maybe one tool finds something, another tool does not, just because a rule in one tool is written a little differently from a rule in another tool. And humans, by looking at the logic in programming, in the program flow, can probably detect this faster than somebody can write a rule to find something new.
So could you give us a quick example of maybe something that you as a human might think that's weird, but would just slide past one of these rule-based tools?
A while back, there was a web app that had a password reset flow. There was no obvious code smells or anything. The token was being passed, the input was being handled with the proper parameters. But the token check only verified the existence of a token in the database. So it did not check whether it was whether it was still valid, whether it had expired, whether it was actually tied to the user that we want to do the password reset for. So technically, any valid reset token could be used to reset any account, which is probably not what you want. Suppose I do password reset, I should not be able to reset your password. This the tool only saw that it had gone through a token check, marked it as verified or sanitized, as we call it, and moved on. But as a human, I dug a little bit deeper into the logic flow that was needed. Notice this flaw that it's only checking for the existence of the token, not actually checking it against the account. It's not checking whether it's been expired or not. And this is a huge problem. So a tool, as I mentioned, was just designed to look for if there's some validation being done, not how the validation was being done in this particular case. So, which was the problem. I'm not saying tools can never detect something like this. Even some existing tools can. It's just one problem in some rule somewhere caused caused this false negative, as we call it. It did not find this issue which was there.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely love tools around here where I work.
Yeah,
Obviously, since we're a platform, but uh, there's a lot of value in what you're saying because you really are trying to contend with the problem set someone else was solving, not maybe the exact thing you're trying to scan for. Are there any like key tips or tricks that you've used that you've taught other people or learned from other people on what to look for?
sure. So you said you attended my talk at BSides San Diego. This talk was on a similar vein. So a lot of that was how do you explore an unfamiliar code base? What do you start looking for in any code base to find any vulnerabilities that something might that might exist? So I can go over the basic overflow of what basic flow of what we should know, what we should be looking for. If that sounds good. So first thing that you need to know for any application is to understand the application. What does the application do? The tech stack it is built on, and you go based on that. That is the basis of what you will be looking for. So if the application interacts with a database, you can think about database vulnerabilities like SQL injection, as I mentioned. If it does not have a database, you're probably not going to find too many of those. And some suspicious things you can look for is any suspicious strings like API keys, secret tokens, SQL statements like select, insert, delete, etc., debug flags. Those are some suspicious strings you can look for. You can also look for any suspicious functions in a database like exec or upload file or MD5 or some hashing functions, things like that, and see if there's anything around that. These are the ways you find some sources and sinks, which is where data enters the system, enters the code base, and where data exits. And if you find a flow from a source to a sink, which has not gone through any sanitization or some actual well done sanitization, then you have found something nice, and you can report that, or you can work on improving that, or work with the engineering team to help fix that.
So this sounds like it would work even if you're not that familiar with the code base, that you don't need to understand the complete application for everything it's doing, but just watching those data flows. Is that right?
That is right. And that's what a lot of tools try to emulate. They try to find sources, they try to find sinks, and try to find an uninterrupted data flow from source to sink.
All right. So let's turn the attention to AI because I think that's one of the promises a lot of companies are making out there that our AI toolkit can fill that gap. The things that, since it's not deterministically programmed with a set of rules, it's going to try to contextually understand that.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
So AI is going to be a huge part of security. It's especially helpful in handling large scale AI generated code. With vibe coding going on, people generating millions of lines of code by AI every day, there's no way humans can keep up with that. So there's no way to get a human reviewer for that. A lot of different companies are trying very different approaches when it comes to AI. So there are AI enhanced scanners, IDE copilots, logic tracing agents, specialized AI agents to read through code like a human would. And we do not know as an industry so far which will win out and which will be the best way. And it might turn out that different approaches, different code bases requires different AI tools to help out. So it's definitely going to play a huge part, but it is not going to replace humans because, at least as AI is now, it's not in a position to replace humans. Think of AI as like an intern. It's really good at what it does. It does it really fast and will help you get your job done a lot faster, but not take over for you completely. So humans, when you use AI, can pay attention to the larger picture, which is logic flows, system design, etc., control logic, and leave it to AI to scan for to crawl through each individual line of code to find something similar. So that is the direction we are heading in my opinion. But we'll see how the industry progresses.
Right on. Wish there was a magic wand that would just magically solve all this stuff. But you said something interesting in there, the rise of vibe coding.
Yep.
And I think that is a double-edged sword because one, yeah, we can get a lot of stuff prototyped faster, but the other
Yes.
side, as you mentioned, it's like an intern. It's not that smart. It can't figure out what you mean, what you really want, and then how to
Yeah.
do it securely. So, do you think it's going to lead to more security issues overall that are, or the AI going to solve these security issues that it starts to create?
AI can lead to a lot more security issues because how AI is trained to code is on all the code available on the internet. So it might not be for just engineers who have been trained in specific coding methods, or uh, it also people who have just created their own GitHub repos and have just begun coding. AI is trained on all of these. So it can definitely lead to some problems. But as I mentioned earlier, AI can also help solve these. Specialized security agents that have been trained to read code can be a way to solve this. So, like, if there's an AI agent specifically trained for security reviews instead of creating code, that will be trained on a separate data set on what to look for and what to actually analyze. Then that can help solve these problems as well. So, AI can solve the problems AI creates, but it needs some human oversight.
Yeah, human in the loop is how a lot of people are talking about that.
Yeah.
I can imagine a workflow where the AI says, "There's something weird here. I'm not going to try to fix it, but I'm going to flag this." Do you
Yeah.
see that at all, like assist bots happening right now?
There are a few like that. There's also some that will suggest a fix for you. So it will be like, this is a problem. This is how I suggest you fix it. And if you want, we can create a PR with this, with the fix implemented. So it's still, I would not trust it to create a PR on its own and then fix it on its own and just approve it. I would want a human to be involved in the review process of the code and uh, then approve it. It just, AI makes your life easier, especially with some hallucination problems that I've seen that from AI, that I do not want all my PRs to go into production directly with when they're generated by AI.
Oh, the hallucination problem is
Yeah,
massive. I just read a new research paper on that, and something we've talked about in the past on the show. Mackenzie Jackson, the original host of the show,
yeah.
has been talking about that for years. The hallucination squatting problem of malicious code being out there in packages that is just making up. And if your security tool is telling you just use this package, that's not helping the situation that much.
I have come across that myself while coding it. I'm just going to name it package A because I do not want to name packages, but it AI suggested a code import package A when package A did not exist. If, as an attacker, I can predict that AI is going to suggest package A, I can just publish a malicious package on NPM with the same name, with similar functionality, and people who AI suggested to might just import it without checking it, which is dangerous, to say the least.
That's very dangerous. That's why we need these reviews.
Yeah.
And the tools. But it also means we're going to need to change the way that we've been doing certain things, and that starts with the developer. I think better education, better awareness. So,
Yeah.
what would you want app engineers, developers out in the world to know about what you're looking for?
So, what I want developers to understand is that security is not just a responsibility of the security team, it is a responsibility of everybody. Think of it as a team sport. So, when everybody from the developer to the security engineer to is involved in it, it and does not think of security as an afterthought, that is when systems can be more secure. So security needs to be built into the part of development processes instead of plugging it in later and hoping it works. That just leads to a lot of fire drills and a lot of code refactoring and a lot of frustration all over.
Thank you very much for sharing your wisdom on here. Definitely, there's hopefully a place for humans in the future of security. But
Yeah.
speaking of humans, let's get to know you a little bit better as a person. We always ask all of our guests a few standard questions on this show. Uh, let's just dive into it. The first one is, what's your favorite all-time security command line tool?
It's not technically a security command line tool, but grep is very, very helpful. As I mentioned, while vulnerability hunting, you can look for suspicious strings, functions, if you use grep correctly, rip grep find, you can actually have a mini static analysis engine on your time that you can on your hand that you can configure as you need.
I love grep myself. It's a really useful function.
Yeah. Secrets, patterns, debugging, you can do all of that with grep.
So you've had a few jobs in your life and been
Yeah.
through a few interviews, I would
Yeah.
suspect.
Yeah.
What is your favorite interview question that you've been asked?
So one time I'd been asked, tell me about a bug that you found that wasn't obvious. What made you look there? And we discussed earlier about the password reset token bug. That was the answer I gave. I like this question because it was very contextual and about my own experience instead of a generic theoretical question. And I could talk very in depth about it because I actually worked quite a bit on it and could give a very nice answer. And yeah, I like that as an interview question because it talks about a candidate's experience and what practical work they've done in the past.
I think that also is a question about passion. Not everyone's passionate about bugs. Not everyone's passionate about vulnerabilities. So hearing that naturally bubble up I think, would be a positive thing if I was hiring. So
Yeah.
let's best advice, worst advice. Let's start with the good. What's the best security advice you're hearing out there, or that you could give our audience?
Don't trust, verify. It's a slight twist on the trust but verify uh, thing that goes around. Especially in like today's distributed and interconnected systems, you need to validate everything. Data, assumptions, trust boundaries, everything needs to be validated. Do not trust that an internal service is internal and thus we should not care about it. Still apply rate limits, still apply some validations on it.
And what is the worst security advice that you think you've ever heard?
It's more of a mindset, but it's if you're compliant, you're secure. If you have a checklist of security that you've done, that does not mean you're secure. An attacker does not care about any checklist, internal checklist that you have. They care about uh, what they can access, what they can exploit. So compliance is a part of security, but it's not the do all end all of security.
Compliance is not security. Security is not compliance. They involve each other, but wow, yeah,
Yes.
I hear that way too much out in the world, especially when it comes to regulations. People think the regulations are going to save us because we'll just comply with the regulations, and that's all we need.
Yep, that is part of what you need, but not everything.
So here we're going to wrap things up. Always like to give our guests the chance to get the last word. Anything you want to say? Anything you want to plug? Any advice you want to give to the wider world?
Security is everybody's game. If you are involved in any way in product development as a program manager, as a developer, just keep security in mind and do not think of it as an afterthought. Thank you.
Let's keep raising awareness out there and get everyone talking about security. So again, please like, subscribe, share this with your friends, and thanks for tuning in.